Hello and welcome to another interview with an amazing whip cracker here. Today I am interviewing Aaron Bonk. Thank you for joining us, Aaron.
Good to be
And
here.
awesome. I'm glad you are, and I'm glad to see yet another whip cracker here. As I've mentioned so many other times on these interviews, that normally every year we would be meeting and in LA to do meet and greets and crack whips and talk about making whips and generally bring the community together and have friends that enjoy cracking whips. But this year, obviously, with coronavirus and the pandemic, we are all isolated. So I've been working on these, bringing people together to bring the community together, really. And today we are honored by being joined with Aaron Bonk. Thank you for joining, Aaron.
My
And
pleasure. Yeah.
you, I was looking at your website, which is aaronbonk.com. You've got
Yeah.
your website. That's amazing. There is so much that you do, and it looks like you've been doing it for a very long time.
Yes. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Can you give me 1 second? I'm sharing this
Oh,
live to
yeah.
my
That's right.
Facebook feed, and
I,
then I can add. I'm not good at multitasking
sure.
sometimes.
If you guys haven't seen it, Aaron also submitted into the LA WhipCon a video. He's posted one recently that I think is the same one that you submitted. How many whips can you crack in 15 seconds? Or how many times can you crack in 15 seconds?
How
Or
many whip
whip
tosses you
tosses,
can
that's
do?
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I won't spoil it, but you need to go check that out. It's probably not what you expect, especially from Aaron. Um, but
All right.
my wife and I were rolling. It's well
Oh,
done.
thank you. Thanks.
A
When,
true performer.
when I can't dazzle them with skill, sometimes I will opt to entertain them with comedy.
That's very humble
So,
of you, although
yeah,
I certainly would say you're very skilled as well.
thanks.
I mean, you've got world records, and
I
you
do.
just got one recently as well.
Uh,
Somewhat
my my
the fire whip
last,
juggling.
yeah, that was about a year and a half ago now, though.
Oh,
Actually,
I
uh,
feel like time
yeah,
has stopped when the pandemic started.
it's just
Sorry.
all weird.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
More recent than
But
mine that I don't
yeah,
have.
yeah.
So.
Oh, all right. Uh, yeah, I've set 4 world records. I still hold 3 of them. Uh, yeah, all with whip cracking and or whip juggling in some kind of way. Um,
How long have you
yeah.
been doing whip cracking and using a whip in general?
Um, I was thinking about that recently because I was saying on stage recently that I've been cracking whips for 16 years, and I actually think it's a little bit more. I think it's closer to 18 years. I know I've been juggling for 32 years. I learned when I was 11, and somewhere in there, I went to a juggling festival, and there was a whip workshop being taught. Just how to
Hmm.
crack a whip, and I ever since I was a little kid. First time I saw Indiana Jones, I was like, that is the bomb. That is the
Yep.
most amazing. I need to crack a whip one day. So I was at that festival and it was either Erie, PA or Buffalo. I can't remember which one. And I went to the whip workshop and I got a crack out of a bullwhip and I was like, that's even cooler than I thought it was going to be. I'm in. I'm sold. Yeah.
You're hooked from the first crack, huh?
Yeah, totally, totally. So yes, I think it's about 18 years. I got it. There's a way I can find out, I think, but I have to look it up. So yeah.
Was the juggling just naturally the culmination of the two, or did that happen much later?
Much later. I've been doing both for a long time, and it wasn't up until let's see, my first world record with it was in 2018, and I think I first juggled 3 objects towards the end, 3 whips towards the end of 2017. So roughly 3 to 4 years ago was the first time. And I wasn't the first person to juggle 3 whips. That would be Space Cowboy, Shane, I believe his real name is, and I had heard about it, but I had never seen it. It's I think there is some one really hard video to find online somewhere, and it's really really hard to see what's going on. But he basically used longer whips, and he would crack it in fling it up and crack it and fling it up. And, so I kind of thought about how I could, and there was a lot of movement to it. I was thinking about how I could make it a little bit more efficient and
Hmm.
maybe something I could perform one day. And at the time, also Leap and Louie, David Lichtenstein, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He was also working on three whip juggling, and I met him at the first LA WhipCon that I went to a few years ago, and saw his technique and learned a bit from him, at least about how he was starting off with holding two and one, holding one coiled and one. Anyway, so I learned a bit from him, and then sort of refined it and came up with my own fast figure eight pattern to do
Right.
it. And yeah,
It looks
yeah,
really good. It sounds really good too, which I don't know if most people pay as much attention to that when they see all the things flying through the air. But it's really
yeah.
got a really nice rhythm to it. Did you have to tweak it a
Thanks.
little bit to get the figure eights versus Catalans or something?
I mean, I was kind of when I first started, I just started going with the fast figure eight. It was because when I figured out that I would have a good pattern for it, I was already working on a two whip routine. I had gotten some whips from Adam that turned out to be really good for tossing and catching. So I wanted to create a routine that I could use in a small space. As you know, whips take up a lot of space.
Right.
And I perform on all kinds of stages all over the place. Sometimes with a low ceiling, sometimes with a really narrow space. So my goal was to create a sort of blend of juggling and whip cracking with shorter whips that I could use in a smaller space. And in that, I was working on these fast figure eight tosses, just, catch, figure eight, toss right into it. And I was doing that alternating hands. And at some point, I realized I could get a crisscross in there, you know, to opposite hands. And I was like, oh, three whip pattern can work. And so it kind of
Okay.
that clicked it. And so my pattern kind of always started with that.
Have you experimented
Yeah, and yeah, I
with
do.
other ones?
I have, but before that, like you said, I really like the sound of mine too.
Yeah.
That ta 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 ta, and it sounds even cooler getting up into four whips. There's this really cool rat-a-tat rhythm that I love when it works. But also a part of it was I knew I was going to be trying to go for a world record with it, and with Guinness World Records, the stipulation is a catch only counts if you crack the whip after catching it. So uh, having two cracks before every throw meant that if I missed one of the cracks, odds are I would get it on the second one. So
Ah,
that was
oh, I like
kind
that.
of some of the thinking behind it too. Yeah, and that came in handy when I went for the endurance run because some of them, I didn't get the first crack or I missed the second one, and having two cracks in between really helped solidify it. But yeah, there's a couple other patterns. I've come up with another one that kind of comes out of the swish bang, where you catch it and do the bang and then crack on the swish as you're coming up. That's another pattern I've messed with. And then of course there's Sylvia Rosat's pattern. She does a three whip juggling pattern that is different from mine, and it only has one crack after the catch, but it's a more I think her pattern is more efficient movement
Mm.
wise. Um, it's still something I'm messing with. She was awesome. She took my first record, the speed record, how many cracks in a minute, um, about a little over a year and a half ago now, and uh,
Hmm.
and I was in contact with her, and I was like, hey man, you're awesome, and I really hope to learn your technique one day. But it turns out the whips I use, I like a lot of floppiness to them with my style, but her style, it kind of requires a little bit stiffer whips, I think. But I was telling her about it. I was like, I'd love to learn your pattern one day. It's, really cool. Props to you. And she was so awesome. She was like, well, how about I just send you a set of whips? So she made a
What?
set of whips just for me and sent them to me.
How
And
cool is that?
actually all this past month I've been working on learning her technique,
Wow.
and it's kind of cool to just learn a different way. I want to learn as many ways for it as possible. I want to be as good a whip juggler as I can possibly be, and so that to me is learning all the things. And yeah, it's a weird, to me it's a weird pattern because I've gotten really good at this one thing. So it's like
Hmm.
deconstruct everything, relearn it again. But it's cool. It's a bit more of a chill vibe once you settle into it. Mine is kind of aggressive, and hers is really chill and feels good when it settles in. But yeah,
Cool, cool.
yeah,
Have you tried anything with multiple people? I mean, if there's people that do juggling individually, you could. There's lots of juggling
yeah.
with two people.
I'd love to. I haven't yet. Sylvia's over in Europe somewhere. I'm not exactly sure. I
That'd be a
know
long
they
toss.
travel around. Right, it would. It would. I might actually beat my high throw video. But I know her and her partner Bobby do 6 whip passing, and I think I saw them doing a 9 whip pattern with another person as well at some point. So it's
Wow.
been done before. I just don't have anyone around here to do it with. Yeah,
Maybe that there'll be somebody at next year's LA WebCon that'll be able to do that with you. Give it a
that'd be
try.
great. That'd be great. I
Be a
know
lot of fun.
Jennifer Choi has been talking about doing. I know I think she's been working on 3 whips. So she's been talking about we got to get to a point where we can pass. That's another thing. I think Sylvia's pattern is better for passing because it
Hmm.
keeps your eyes down lower, and I can't exactly explain why, but I think it is better for getting multiple people. So that was another bit of motivation to learn it. Is one day I can meet up with them and we can all throw whips at each other.
Exactly. That sounds kind of bad, but okay.
Yeah.
I like it. We've gone up and down with number. We've had up to 11 people viewing with us. If anybody wants to have any questions answered or have any questions for Aaron or I, definitely post it in the chat. Be happy to relay over to him, or he can see it there.
Yeah.
Um, have some fans here. It looks like we got Keith and Isaac and Ashley, all
Hey
excited
guys.
to hear from you.
Yeah.
This year with the LA WhipCon has
Mm.
been. I mean, it's obviously been a very different experience, and you've been to some of the previous ones, correct?
Yeah, I've been to 3 of them now. I think 3. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Last year and the 2 years before that. Yeah.
okay, very
Yeah.
cool. So obviously this year's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Um,
A little bit.
so other than just saying, so how's it been different for you? But
Yeah.
really, making a video is very different than performing live. Seeing
Yeah.
other people's videos are very different than watching them live. So
Right.
what do you think the positives and negatives are here for you and the way that you participated this year, both as a viewer or
Um,
participant?
I mean, there's a couple things. Obviously, I think what many people have said is, and to me, the best part of WhipCon is just being there with all those people and getting to hang out and trade ideas and try each other's whips and try each other's tricks
Mm,
and take the classes and it's really just finally getting to meet these people that you've interacted with online and all these whip crackers from around the some of them from around the world that you've seen them post videos and stuff online and you get to meet them in person and that to me is my favorite part of WhipCon. The competitions are cool. I'm not really all that huge on the competitions. I kind of, I love them and I love watching them, but I don't. My drive to compete isn't really that strong.
sure.
I like to focus on my performance routines, and that the stuff I work on doesn't necessarily score very high in the traditional competition uh, judging. So yeah, I like watching them, but and that's kind of the benefit of this year, at least that I try to look on the bright side, is that I've got to see competition videos from so many different people who wouldn't have been there
Yeah.
anyway, and that's kind of the cool thing is there are so many more people involved in competing and submitting videos from all over the world who, even if there wasn't a pandemic, they wouldn't have been there anyway. And so it's kind of cool that it's been able to, through all of Adam's effort, bless that dude, man. You know, like everybody, got mad love for Adam Winrich. He's the dude, man. And through his effort, we've gotten to see and appreciate and interact with all these whip artists from
Yeah.
all over the place who may not have been able to get a flight to LA, even in a good year. So that's a benefit, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
It is also interesting that we've got the three different categories, and one of them is really I don't think it could have been done appropriately in person, and that's the performance category.
Mm.
And like they did, several people posted things that were edited and dynamically shot with crazy lighting and
Right,
all. You just couldn't do that in person. Um,
right, right. It would have to be, as opposed to more of a video competition, it would have to be more of a live performance competition,
right.
which as a live performer, I see the benefit to that as well. And to me, there's different skills being
Mhm.
represented. Um, as far as creating a routine that really pops live, that entertains people, that really gets people engaged and wanting to see more, that is a skill in and of itself. Creating a really cool, engaging video that happens to be around whips, that's a whole other skill. So I think with it being the way it is, it just focused more on those skills per se. But also, yeah, I don't know how Adam judged it, but obviously the winning video was just a beautiful thing. And yeah, that you wouldn't get that if we were doing it live. But then you might also get some different takes on the whole idea if it was live. I know if we were live, I probably would have done a completely different routine. Um, that is something that I've been wanting to record for a long time, but haven't found the space or the time or the ability to really record it how I want it to be. But it's something that I've been performing live for a couple of years now, and
Okay.
that's probably what I would do if it was live. So I think we're seeing different aspects, and I think
Yeah.
that's beautiful. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Um,
It's
yeah,
evolving to fit our situation these days,
exactly. As everything
as
is. Yeah,
everything is.
yeah.
Um, so on your videos, especially like with the high toss there,
Mm.
did you have to do a lot of like a lot of takes and all? Some people have said they had to take a lot of takes to get the best, their
Yeah.
best of
Right.
everything. Yeah.
And that and again, that's part of the difference of doing video
Right.
competitions is you can just do it till you get it right or as close to right as you're going to get and submit that. Whereas if you're competing live at the WhipCon or at an event, you got that one shot, and if you screw up, you screw up,
Mm.
and that's part of the competition is being able to nail it under pressure. So there's pros and cons to both sides, and there's a beauty to both of those. Um, but yeah, some of my videos take a lot of takes. Some of them happen pretty quickly. I will say that one, I think it was, I don't know, I think we did. I don't want to give it away, but I think I did I don't know 5 to 10 takes of it just to get it
Sure.
right. But there was a good deal of practice leading up to it, and had it worked out pretty solid what I wanted to do before that point. But yeah, it's some videos I do it'll happen on the first take, like sweet, nailed it,
Sure.
but it depends on how complex I get with it. Um, I did a video back towards the beginning of quarantine called uh, Crack House,
Mhm.
Whip Crack House. And it was just me doing various stuff in my living room, which is a pretty small space. I mean, right now with a very low ceiling. And,
Yeah, you could hear
I'd
it hitting
say
the
that I would,
ceiling when you.
right, yeah. And there's still marks on my ceiling from that video. But, that one, it involved a lot of edits, and for each trick, each sequence that I did in and of itself took a number of takes till I got the best one that I was satisfied with. So that one, I was up. I was up until the wee hours recording that one. So that one took a lot of takes. Yeah, it just
A true
really depends
performer.
on.
I like it.
Yeah, yeah. You do what it takes to get it right, or as right as possible.
Sure,
So
sure.
yeah.
We actually kind of along these lines.
Mhm.
Isaac has asked us a question. If you saw that, what's your favorite trick to perform? Like,
Oh wow.
I don't know if it necessarily fits specifically with that, but it is an interesting
Yeah.
question.
Um, that's a good question. I don't know if you said that, but I'm gonna limit it to whip tricks specifically. And
You didn't say whip tricks, but okay.
he
I
didn't,
don't think
but
he means
we're
card
talking whip stuff.
tricks, right?
Well, I do a whole bunch of other juggling tricks too. Yeah, I think my favorite to perform right now is one that I said is something I've wanted to record for a while. It's the same routine I was just talking about, and it's what came out of the whole idea that led to the three whip juggling. And it was the doing two whips involving a lot of tosses and catches, and it kind of involved some poi influence because I used to do poi way back, and juggling
Hmm.
and whip cracking. And it's a routine that I started performing like back in 2018 and I've done for a couple years, but I've never released a video of it. People who have seen me at Renaissance fairs have seen me do it, but I've never recorded it. And it's about a 4 minute routine.
Wow.
And yeah, I and my vision, while I was crafting it, I was trying to find music to go with it. I wasn't really thinking about Ren fairs. I was thinking about my cruise ship show and trying to come up with good music. I'm originally a musician, and a lot of my routines,
Wow.
my juggling routines used to come from I'd find a good piece of music and I'd set to it. But I was looking for music, but it turned out that a lot of the different tosses and stuff inspired different time signature changes. If anybody's a musician, they'll know what that means. So it was different rhythmic
Right.
changes. So I couldn't find a piece of music that would line up because it would keep changing. And I've been a sort of amateur hobbyist beatboxer for years. Right?
No
Just something I
way.
kind of do. Yeah, I've never hadn't really done much with it. It was just a it just I just entertained myself with it. I'm a musician. I'm rhythm heavy, and so yeah. So I would kind of beatbox, and so I was trying to find a music, and I couldn't. And I was just like, you know what? Maybe I could make my own music to this. So I started matching different beats to the song, to the rhythms of the whips, and eventually came up with a whole beatbox sequence that I do while I'm doing this whip toss routine. And it's my favorite thing to perform when I get it right because
Wow.
it involves so much of who I am. It's me
Yeah.
as a juggler, as a whip artist, as a musician, and it really is a culmination of all the style in all of those things that I've been working on for so many years. So that's probably my favorite whip trick to perform. Not that it's one trick,
I
but
love
yeah.
it. That's good. Do you
Right.
play other instruments? Do you sing?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a guitar player. I sing. I released a CD way back. I was trying to
What?
be a musician. I was trying to be a musician long, before I was trying to be a professional juggler. I used to play bars and coffee houses around Cleveland, Ohio, and yeah, I put out a CD forever ago, like maybe 2001, I think, in my
Wow.
previous
We're
lifetime.
gonna have to
Yeah,
find one of those.
and so yeah, and I play a little bit of hand drums and used to play some bass stuff, but I don't play music professionally anymore. It's mostly just for my own enjoyment, but threads of it make their way into my work, like that
Sure.
beatbox routine, and I have one or two songs that I'll play and sing in the right performances sometimes. Yeah.
I've heard that some of the best orators, the people that speak well at
Mhm.
public speaking, usually have a really good sense of rhythm, and that they kind of go together, and it's more pleasing to hear, and they have a better cadence to just how they're speaking,
Yeah.
and it's interesting how a lot of these tend to interweave. Our different hobbies can improve other parts of our lives depending on what
Yeah.
you're doing. That a politician may actually be better at what he does if he takes some music lessons, for example,
Yeah.
which
That
is
makes
kind of
sense.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I know I took voice lessons in college. Um, I was in college for 2 years and I was undeclared that whole time, but I juggled a lot and I took a lot of classes that have helped me in the future. I took a lot of music classes. I took
Mhm.
classical guitar and bass and voice lessons in particular, and that helped me learn how to project and have proper posture for it. Not that I always do, but a lot of those skills have made their way into my performing, even if not directly, then they kind of
Right.
indirectly influence what I do. And the sense of rhythm and timing has such a big part in whip cracking as well.
Yeah, it
They're
really
really a
does.
percussive instrument. Yeah. So
The ultimate percussion, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, actually, Adam was talking on one of his interviews he did with Nick a while back when about how to not get in trouble when you're in the park, basically.
Ah,
And he was talking about basically that. If you can make it more like a routine, make it more musical
right.
versus just trying to do one overhead crack after another as loud as you
Oh,
can,
yeah.
that you're going to have people are going to call the cops versus you're going to draw a crowd of people enjoying it. That
Right.
there is very, even though they're both loud,
Yeah.
but one is
Yeah.
an instrument and one is screaming.
Yeah. It is. It's true. Couple thoughts on that. I I'm a big fan of using what I call silencers or practice poppers,
Oh
which
yeah.
is just a length of paracord tied off. This is very similar to it. This is one popper, and it's instead of being a thin popper, it's thick. And actually, I'll cut it over here, so it's about the same width as your fall. And when you crack that, you get more of a thwap than a loud full-on crack. And so if I'm practicing where there's other people around, there's one studio in St. Petersburg, Florida, that lets me practice inside, but it's because I put on silencer poppers, and it's a much nicer way to again not get the cops called on you. But yeah, but also nowadays, if I'm in a park or a public space to practice, the very first thing I'll do is start and warm up with three whip juggling, because they look at me and they're like, "Oh, that guy's a juggler," and then I can move on into other whip cracking, and it kind of makes sense. It's not like, "What the hell's this guy doing?" And it's kind of cool. It's sort of a way of easing into their space. But again, if I'm practicing around other people who aren't whip crackers, I'm really not trying to get the loudest cracks, because that's kind of a jerk move.
Sure. I,
Yeah.
that's awesome. We've got several people that want your CD in the chat. I don't know if you've seen that, but
They're not
oh,
available for sale
oh,
anymore. Yeah.
eBay. Got to
So,
search. Got to
yeah,
search
good
the
luck.
archives back there.
Good luck. They used to be up on, was it CD Baby? There was an old, like, you can upload your album and you could buy the MP3 versions, but I think that site's completely gone now. So, sorry.
All right, we have a quest. But
Hmm.
Keith has a good question here. Probably it was from a while back that I missed. He's asked if you ever use long whips. Yeah, your juggling whips are short whips, and
Yeah.
I could
Yeah,
see.
they are. Yeah,
Um,
my juggling whips are 46-inch bull whips. They're really really short.
wow.
These little guys here, and I love them. And again, it was by design. I really was working on a routine that I could do in a small space. And sometimes I'll get to a gig and they're like, "That's your stage," and it's like so tiny. Like, cool. I may not be able to do everything, but I can do something. So that was important to me. Um, yeah, that's a good question. I used to do a lot more. In fact, I just got these out in practice yesterday. I was out training, and these are a set of 5.5 foot stock whips made by Torrance
Oh,
Fisher,
those are beautiful.
whose work, yeah, I just absolutely adore his work. I love the lattice work in there, and he's just super creative, and he makes a damn fine whip. Um, and yeah, so I play with these from time to time. A lot of time I just don't have the stage space to use long whips, so I've gotten used to using shorter whips. But I do love doing them, and I've actually, because of the past couple years, I've been so focused on this one style and with the juggling
Mhm.
of whips. I've actually my longer whip skills have really atrophied, and I found that out
Uh-oh.
yesterday. It was sad. Uh,
Oh
but
no.
uh, but yeah, there was a while, for a good long while, I was really working on four corners, and I was starting to nail it with both hands.
Whoa.
And yeah, but then I was just focused on the other stuff, and that's kind of so. I've kind of made a conscious decision to start. getting back into training that again, along with the juggling. And just last night, this is a great question. Let me transition this first,
Yeah,
is saying that, my very good friend Leah Orleans, she
sure.
placed third, I think, in the performance video. And part of that was her 20-foot whip that she was doing. And I've been playing with that. We get together and train a lot. So I've been messing around with that. And I just messaged Torrance last night saying, hey, man, I really am digging this long whip stuff. I kind of want a 15-footer. And so I've been talking with him all day, and it's a good chance I'm going to order one of those from him. I'm looking forward to that.
Very
Because
cool.
yeah, playing with that 20-footer, it's just awesome, and it's a totally different thing. It's so different, and
Yeah, I mean,
but
looks
I'm
like the
I'm
whole body
enjoying it.
movement she does and everything. It's the whole. You have to very much put a lot more body movement into getting the
You
effort down
do,
to the end and stuff.
and with that whip, I was really surprised because I've cracked some 20s before. I cracked a 40 whip once,
Oh,
and a lot of them tend to be very heavy, or start off really thick and taper down. That one is surprisingly light, and it really just boils it more down to technique and getting. I found that when I didn't try to muscle it, when I really just focused on technique and let it go, that gets the good cracks. You try to force it and it doesn't go. And yeah, so I'm getting intrigued by the long whip thing. Even if it's not. This is another problem I have, is doing things just for my own enjoyment versus only doing things that I can put in a stage show. As a performer, that becomes a delicate balance
I can see
sometimes, is trying to remember
that.
that I do this stuff because I love it first. And so yeah, so taking and setting aside training time just for stuff I enjoy is always a tricky equation to figure out. But yeah,
Sure.
I think I'm gonna get myself a 15-footer and just start playing around with it.
I look
It's
forward
so
to
much
seeing
fun.
you try it out. Yeah, that's exciting.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna have Tori on here. Hopefully, well, we are supposed to have him on the other day. We missed,
yeah.
but and Leia is going to be on Sunday. Is we're currently planning to
Oh,
chat with her,
oh,
so
nice,
that'll be
nice.
exciting.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
you mentioned about different training regimens,
Hmm.
having to focus on that. What is your normal training regimen for that? Is it like daily, an hour a day? Do you spend 8 hours a day cracking whips or juggling something, cooking
I,
dinner
I
with
would.
one hand, juggling eggs with the other?
I'd be a lot bigger if I did. Um, it's it's a difficult question because it depends on when in the year I am. Like, if I'm working a lot, then I don't get a whole lot of time to train new stuff. And any
Mm,
training is usually just a couple times during the week, maybe two or three times. Uh, but during pandemic, been a whole new thing. So part of my goal, I spent all of December doing this. It was awesome, and I had it in mind. Like, I worked a Ren Fair in PA for a couple months, and then another one in Florida for November. And December I had nothing, and my goal was uh, at least 5 days a week. I'd go to the gym for 2 hours with my good buddy. We work out together, and then come home, refresh, and I'd go out and train for at least 2 hours. And I was doing that generally 4 to 5 days a week. And when I do things like that, when I do stuff that regularly, I always notice a jump in whatever skills I'm working on. And the focus was, oh, excuse me, the focus all of December was for whip juggling, and I definitely made some serious progress on that, because that's been my that was my quarantine project. Like, at the beginning of quarantine, I wrote down a whole bunch of stuff I wanted to try to get done while I wasn't working, and that was a big one. Was really get four whip juggling, and just and really get it solid. So I made some solid progress, and then I started working again, and then I had some time off. So it's been making some serious progress with it, and I'm pretty happy about it. But yeah, when I do
cool.
practice, I try to get at least 2 hours to train, more if I can. And I'll usually spend, the first half hour, I'll do a long warm up run with three whips, or just some basic two whip stuff, something to get the blood flowing in the first 5 minutes. And I'll spend about 20 to 25 minutes warming up, doing calisthenics and stretches to get all the muscles, warmed up, stretched, ready to go. Do a lot of stretching these ones, and because I find the more warmed up your muscles are, the quicker your body is able to learn things, and the less likely you are to injure yourself to pull a muscle, that kind of thing. And the older I get, the more that's a concern. So yeah, when I do a training session, I try to get at least 2 hours to do that, and then I spend the next hour and a half training pretty hard.
Wow.
Usually these days I'll spend about an hour on four whip, and then the last half hour doing something else, like working on Sylvia's three whip style, or yesterday it was the stock whips. So yeah, that's kind
That's
of how I do
awesome.
it.
I think that says a whole lot about your endurance and how much time you put into this. I mean, from personal experience, just trying to get as many cracks as I can into 60 seconds for the
Mm,
one of the performance, single whip performance even. It
yeah,
was like my forearms were really burning, and especially
yeah,
after, 9 or 10 takes. But
yeah.
that, yeah, 2 hours. Oh my goodness gracious.
Well, I'm not like full
You don't
on cracking that whole 2 hours,
volley for
It's
2 hours straight.
good. No, God, no. I really should. Man, back when I was doing a lot more with performance hybrids and stocks, I had those Popeye forearms that were just huge. Because yeah, it's that
Right.
grippy stuff, and they're still there. But I was realizing when I was working on the stock whips yesterday that some of that has atrophied a little bit. Because it's different muscles to do the tossing and the juggling. It's still pretty brutal on the shoulders, but it's just
Right.
different muscles. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
and and also, you got to think, this is my job. I'm a performer, I'm a whip artist.
Mhm.
It's so when I'm not working, I should still be working at my job, and so I train like it's my job, because it is. Yeah,
Sure. That's a good
yeah,
perspective to have, and I
mm,
think we could all appreciate that.
yeah,
I mentioned another interview that Tiger Woods had talked about how he spends 1 hour a day practicing putting,
mm,
and that it was, if you get to thinking, I mean, what do I do every day for an hour to get better at it? Like,
yeah,
there's nothing. I sleep,
yeah.
maybe, I don't know, but
And somehow I'm still not any
right.
better at sleeping. I'm actually terrible at
I know.
it.
Some nights I just can't at all. But
Right.
but yeah, no, that's really interesting, and I think that probably goes along with how you've reached such a high level of your craft, and it's
Thanks.
very
Thanks.
inspiring.
Oh, cool, man. Hopefully it gets you to work. It really is amazing the difference that daily practice will make on something, even if it's just a half hour. If you're doing it daily, you'll notice a progress that isn't there if you have longer increments between your practices. And that still surprises me after all these years of doing this. It's something I know, but even when I do get a chance to do daily practice, um, I notice progression, and I don't know why it surprises me. It's such a
Well,
standard idea, but yeah, yeah.
I mean, you actually when I saw your fire whip, that you got your world record, I actually
Mm.
ordered some bean bags and started picking
Oh
up
yeah.
juggling myself. I am not going to show you, but it is, like I said, it's very inspiring. So thank you very
Yeah,
much. And I know a number of other people that were inspired to pick it up and say, "Yep, that was hard. I'm more impressed." So
cool, good. I had the absolute pleasure of performing actually that whole beatbox routine. I was a guest performer at the International Jugglers Association annual
whoa,
event back in 2019. And yeah, so I got to perform that routine for an audience full of jugglers. And, some who were better at me than juggling, some who were worse, but it was the most appreciative audience ever, because they watched what I was doing and they're like, we've never seen a dude do that with whips. So it was pretty cool. And to
yeah.
be able to do that in front of them and also be dropless, it was a kind of a
I wasn't
highlight of my
going to ask. I
career.
was like,
Yeah, no, I did
yeah,
it dropless, and it's a performance I will never forget. I wish everybody in all of my audiences at least could juggle three balls, because it would just It would increase appreciation so much.
Exactly.
Yeah,
How many people were there watching for that? That must have been amazing.
that's a good question. I know, I mean, at least a couple
Whoa.
hundred. I'm not sure. Yeah, and it was in a beautiful old theater, and I had some really cool lighting. I was nervous as hell going into that,
No,
and
not you.
I was, but and I'm a professional performer. I've been a full-time performer since 2004, and even still, there are some shows where I get nervous, and performing for my people, just a room full of the Jugglers Association was awesome. But yeah, I was nervous as hell. Pulled
Yeah,
it
I mean,
off.
on your website, you've got all these accolades and quotes from all these TV shows and things that are really impressive, and I find it
Thanks.
interesting. That's the one that stands out in your memory. That's
No,
that says a lot about you as a true juggler, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
Very cool.
yeah. It was, I've been a juggler for so long, and I was brought into the community by somebody who was gracious enough to teach me and bring me in, and it's an amazing community of people. It's very much similar to the whip cracking world. I mean, a little more prolific. Juggling is, I guess, a little more out around the world than whip cracking, or
Sure.
at least more people. Anyway, it's a great community of people who appreciate skill, who appreciate the time that you put in on things, but who are also willing to show you whatever. There's different societies where skills and things are kept a
Mm.
secret, and with juggling and with whip cracking, it's all upfront. And I find people in both communities are very welcoming to new people and willing to be like, oh yeah, this is how I do this, check it out. And so I owe a lot of my career to, and just my enjoyment of these things that I love, to people in the juggling community who have you know been nice enough to share. And so it was just really cool to be able to give back a little bit and do a performance for that community.
Wow.
Yeah.
Such an
Anyway,
experience.
enough about that one
No,
gig. Yeah. So
no, that's great though, and it shows your passion for it. I mean, that's what I love about
yeah,
that. Um,
yeah.
oh goodness, and there's so many different styles of, I mean, not just juggling, but whip cracking too, obviously. That um, we were talking about the longer whips also. Now that you're getting a longer one, are you going to try maybe some target cutting, or are you
Oh,
going to mix
sure.
target
Yeah.
cutting with juggling, or that's
That's a good question. I mean, I already do a little bit of target cutting. My very first whip routine that I would perform was a basic flower cut out of an audience volunteer's mouth. Um, Before I was really doing much else with a whip, I was performing that. I probably should not have been, but now looking back, but
before I was
but
insured?
yeah, right, yeah. Nowadays, I do a target routine where I hold all the targets on, whip in one hand, flower out in front, behind the back, over the head, and out of the mouth. So I do some targeting. I don't ever perform that for the WhipCon or anything like that, because it's not that great of skill. I think it's a cool
It's
performance thing,
showy.
but yeah, it's a performance thing. But yeah, I think when I get a big whip, I'd love to do some targeting with that sucker. I've gotten
That'd be pretty
pretty good with Leah's 20-footer, and I actually thought about setting up some targets to do, but yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be fun.
Actually, Keith Smith in the chat has a 12-footer bullwhip by Blake Bruning, and
Mm,
he does some amazing target work with his stuff. He has a bunch of videos out there. You should check it out when you get a
yeah,
chance.
yeah. I know.
But
I think I've seen a few of those out there. It's awesome.
yeah, things
Yeah.
swinging and Darth
Right.
Vader holding up a Cheeto or something, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's
That's
it's really
awesome.
great.
Cool.
But yeah, so if somebody wanted to see more of the Bonk, where are they going to find more of you these days?
I mean, well, obviously you can go to my website, aaronbonk.com, and that can, when there are actually shows, they'll be listed on the dates page. Um,
Okay.
right now for the next 2 weekends, I'm performing at the Brevard Renaissance Fair in Melbourne, Florida, and that is yeah, this the next 2 weekends, Saturday and Sunday,
Cool.
10 a.m. to 6 p.m. I'm
Everyone,
doing
go to
three
Florida.
shows a day. Yeah, go to Florida. Uh, I should be at the Renaissance Fair out in LA for April and May, but I am not holding out hope that that's going to open this year. The
Hmm.
infection rates are still pretty high, so we'll see how that plays out. They haven't come out and said whether or not they're opening or closing, but who knows. But yeah, New York Renaissance Fair, hopefully in the fall, if you're up near New York City. Ideally, one day the cruise ships will get started back up and I'll be back out on those again.
Awesome.
Um, but yeah, other than that, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Aaron Bonk Show,
Okay.
all one word, Aaron Bonk Show. I try to I try to post entertaining videos, and I try to do, hey, here's what I'm working on stuff from time to time. I generally try not to spam my accounts with stuff that's not related to entertainment, whips and juggling and music, that kind of thing. So, if you give it a follow, I try to keep it interesting for you.
Well, so far, so good, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this. It's
Awesome.
been a pleasure
Oh,
talking to you, and it
yeah.
seems like we've had a lot of engagement from the chat room here. At least
Yeah.
they're fans here. Keith,
I'm,
Alyssa and Myris wants to remind us that Keith also has dinosaurs in his videos and
oh,
things
and
like
Jar
that.
and Jar Jar,
Oh, and
apparently.
Jar Jar, of
That's
course. I forgot he's a common assistant.
ugh.
So
um yeah. I'm trying to see the comments, and it's
okay,
freezing
yeah.
up
I
on
mean,
me.
I'm
Doug
not rushing
Vahovic.
anything.
Oh, that's awesome. Doug Vahovic is my oldest friend. We were friends going in grade school, commenting, and
Wow. Well, hello,
yeah.
Doug.
Oh, Doug, thanks for your comment, man. Living the dream, both of us. But yeah, I don't. It's not. It's only letting me see 4 comments.
Oh, okay. It says
Um,
VB misses you,
yeah.
Bonk.
Oh, I miss VB.
Ashley Roberts.
Yeah, that's a gig I do each year in Virginia Beach, and that's a
Oh, okay.
interesting gig. Yeah, I did that one this year, and it was weird because normally it's you do street shows essentially, but not passing the hat, it's paycheck, and you do a 45-minute show, and I would do various juggling and danger and chainsaw and fire whips and all this stuff. But this year there was an order from the governor that you couldn't have gatherings of 50 people or more, so I had to go do my show but not get an audience, which is just contrary to everything I do. But so I did some technical juggling. I did some whip cracking that was just, yeah, fun, but not anything that would really gather a huge crowd.
The crowd
So
gets
I'm
too big to start
hoping it.
dropping things, start juggling, and then they
Yeah,
leave. Then you start
exactly. Right. Or just do regular juggling and they leave
making
anyway. Like not the danger stuff, because but
Hmm.
yeah, hopefully we can get back there and get back into the danger and craziness.
I
Um,
like it. I like it.
yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you again. And unless anyone else has any questions, I will let you back to your evening, sir. Thank you again. And I really appreciate you doing your part to help bring this community together, especially
My
during this
pleasure.
quarantine.
My pleasure, man. And thank you for doing this, for doing all these interviews, and at least because yeah, it's we have our Facebook groups and we have our interactions and comments on videos, but it doesn't always get into depth of just that person to person level. And so thank you
Right.
for doing this,
Oh, it's
and
my pleasure.
it's yeah, appreciate you interviewing all these folks, and hopefully
You bet.
next year we can just all get together somewhere and hang out. That's the good stuff.
Interview you in person next year. How about that?
that that'd be awesome. That'd
That
be
sounds
awesome.
good. All right. Thank you, man. Have a
Cool.
good day.
All right, you too. Thanks.